Welcome to Movies Philosophy Channel. In this episode, we explore The Irishman, 2019, directed by Martin Scorsese, a sweeping crime epic that spans decades and reflects on themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the consequences of a life in organized crime. Starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci, the film tells the story of Frank Sheeran, a hitman whose life intersects with the rise and fall of influential crime figures, including the infamous Union leader Jimmy Hoffa. Let's dive into the key moments and emotional depth of this powerful film. Introduction: Frank Sheeran's confession. The film begins with an elderly Frank Sheeran, played by Robert De Niro, in a nursing home, reflecting on his life. Through his narration, the story unfolds in flashbacks, taking us on a journey through Frank's involvement in organized crime, his relationship with the Buffalino crime family, and his role in the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. Frank's life story is filled with regret, and the film is as much about the passage of time as it is about the criminal world. Frank's early life and meeting Russell Buffalino. In the 1950s, Frank Sheeran is a World War II veteran working as a truck driver. One day, he meets Russell Buffalino, played by Joe Pesci, the head of the Buffalino crime family, after helping him with a car issue. This chance meeting changes the course of Frank's life. Russell, a calm and calculating mob boss, takes Frank under his wing, recognizing his reliability and willingness to do whatever is necessary to get the job done. Frank begins working for Russell, carrying out various assignments, from stealing shipments to more violent tasks. Over time, Frank earns Russell's trust and is drawn deeper into the world of organized crime. He is known for his loyalty and efficiency, which earns him a reputation as someone who can be relied on for painting houses, a euphemism for carrying out assassinations. Introduction to Jimmy Hoffa. Russell eventually introduces Frank to Jimmy Hoffa, played by Al Pacino, the charismatic and powerful head of the Teamsters Union. Hoffa, known for his fiery personality and deep connections to organized crime, quickly becomes one of Frank's closest friends. Hoffa trusts Frank implicitly and relies on him for protection and handling sensitive matters. Hoffa's influence within the Union, combined with his mob ties, gives him significant power, but also makes him a target for both enemies within the government and the mafia. Frank becomes Hoffa's trusted confidant, and the two develop a strong personal bond. Hoffa is portrayed as both a fiercely loyal man and someone consumed by his ambition to control the Teamsters Union. His frequent clashes with mob bosses and political rivals create tensions that will eventually lead to his downfall. Tensions rise between Hoffa and the mob. As Hoffa's influence grows, so do his conflicts with the mafia, particularly with Tony Anthony Provenzano, played by Stephen Graham, another mob-connected Union leader. Their disputes become personal, with Hoffa refusing to back down despite the mafia's pressure. Hoffa's boldness increasingly irritates Russell and other mafia leaders, who believe that Hoffa's refusal to play by their rules jeopardizes their control over the Teamsters Union. Despite his growing estrangement from the mafia, Hoffa remains confident that his position as Union president gives him leverage. He even plans a political comeback, hoping to regain control of the Teamsters after serving a prison sentence for jury tampering. Hoffa's arrogance, however, blinds him to the changing dynamics within the crime world. The road trip and the decision to eliminate Hoffa. The tension between Hoffa and the mafia escalates to the point where Russell and other crime bosses decide that Hoffa has become a liability. Despite Frank's personal relationship with Hoffa, he is chosen to carry out the hit. This decision underscores the film's central theme of loyalty versus duty, as Frank is torn between his allegiance to Russell and his friendship with Hoffa. The film's narrative structure is framed around a road trip that Frank takes with Russell and their wives in the 1970s. They are traveling to a wedding in Detroit, but the trip also coincides with the planned assassination of Hoffa. As the road trip progresses, Frank becomes increasingly aware that he will have to betray Hoffa. Hoffa's disappearance. In one of the film's most tense and heartbreaking scenes, Frank is ordered to fly to Detroit, where he meets Hoffa for what Hoffa believes is a friendly meeting. Hoffa, suspicious but still trusting of Frank, has no idea that he is walking into a trap. The two meet at a house, where Hoffa is ambushed and killed by Frank with a single gunshot to the head. The scene is devastating not only because of the violence but because of the personal betrayal. Frank's actions are portrayed as deeply conflicted, and the weight of this decision haunts him for the rest of his life. After Hoffa's murder, Frank and his associates dispose of the body, leaving no trace of Hoffa's whereabouts. Hoffa's disappearance remains one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in American history. The aftermath and Frank's isolation. After Hoffa's death, Frank continues to work for the Buffalino crime family, but the passage of time takes its toll. As the years go by, Frank's relationships with his family deteriorate, particularly with his daughter Peggy, played by Anna Paquin, who becomes estranged from him after sensing his involvement in Hoffa's disappearance. The film portrays Frank's gradual descent into loneliness and isolation. He outlives many of his associates, including Russell, and finds himself reflecting on his choices and the violence he committed. In the film's closing scenes, Frank is shown as an elderly man, alone in a nursing home, grappling with his mortality. He attempts to make peace with his family, but the emotional distance between him and his daughter remains. Frank's regret and reflection. In the final moments of the film, Frank is left to confront his legacy. He asks a priest for spiritual guidance, but the weight of his sins still looms large. The film ends with Frank sitting in his room, his door left slightly ajar, symbolizing both his hope for redemption and the finality of his isolation. He is left to reflect on a life of violence, betrayal, and loyalty, and the haunting question of whether it was all worth it. Closing thought. The Irishman, 2019, is a reflective and somber meditation on the passage of time, the cost of loyalty, and the inevitable consequences of a life spent in the criminal underworld. Through Frank Sheeran's story, the film explores themes of regret, betrayal, and the loneliness that comes from choosing power over personal relationships. Martin Scorsese masterfully weaves together history, crime, and personal reflection, creating a film that is both an epic gangster saga and a deeply emotional tale about the cost of choices made over a lifetime.